Saka is dedicated to creating, preserving, and advancing the arts. I'm your host, Wesley Source. Welcome to the Tucson Tasty Show. Today we have Chef Brian Duffy on the phone. How you doing today, Chef?
Pretty wonderful, man. How are you guys?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Tucson Tasty Show. We're super excited to get your insights into the culinary world.
I'm excited to be here. I know we missed it the first time, so we finally nailed it down, and we're good to go.
Hey, you're busy, we're busy, we understand, no worries. And Chef, you have been on quite a few different paths. I mean, you've been on TV, you've been on, or you have a consulting firm, you've been on Bar Rescue, as well as what else have you done?
Multiple stuff. I've been a chef for almost 30 years. I graduated culinary school in 1995. So I've been at this for a long time. I started working in restaurants when I was 14 and just kind of progressed from there. And since that time, luckily I've opened I've opened 116 restaurants, either for myself, clients, or as a corporate executive chef. I was a corporate exec for a bunch of years. I do it with clients and then as well for myself. And then I've done everything from TV. I started out real local in Philadelphia, doing some local TV shows. And then I got a little bit of recognition from doing that and moved on to doing Food Network, DIY, HG, Fine Living, Spike TV, Paramount. I've done all sorts of stuff in my career, but Bar Rescue is probably what I'm most well known for. And actually, the funny part about that is I left that show almost 12 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
What was the moment you realized you wanted to pursue a career in culinary arts, in the culinary arts?
I mean, for me, I grew up in a house where my parents were just awesome cooks. My mother was a nurse. She worked at night. My father was a teacher. He worked during the day. So we always got to see two different sides of the coin. One with my father being really adventurous, my mother being more of that kind of classic Irish Midwest meat, potato, vegetable type thing. So my mother was very classic with what she did, always cooked phenomenal meals. I remember having friends of ours over one night for dinner, and we all kind of sat down, the whole family, and we were like, oh, man, stuffed chicken breast again. And my buddy who was with us was like, are you kidding me? That's like the greatest meal I've ever had. We were just so used to having really great food. And I'm not saying super adventurous on my mother's side. My father was really more of that, always looking at cookbooks. My father was a man of study. My father had 4 master's degrees and a doctorate.
Wow.
So my father was a very, very educated man. And when he wanted to cook, he looked at books and studied history, and which is kind of what led me into that industry of loving food and loving to cook, is the history behind things. But in reality, I was cooking for girlfriends, man. Immediate gratification, instant gratification. That was wonderful. Let's make out. That was kind of the way I got into cooking on a really fun level. And then I was 19 years old. I had really no idea what I wanted to do. I went to college. I wasn't 100% happy with it. In fact, I can say I hated it. And my buddy's like, you should really think about doing something with food and going to culinary school. And this wasn't the time frame of where we are now, where chefs are on podcasts and radio shows and TV. The only chefs that we really knew at that point were Emeril Lagasse, Jacques Pepin, the Galloping Gourmet, Julia Child. Those were really the big inspirations for us at that point. And, I was joke around. I was like a rugby playing, cigar smoking, beer drinking chef. That's what I was doing at that time. So I ended up going to culinary school and literally falling in love with the science of cooking. And the art of presentation and creating recipes. And Definitely. To me, that was what brought it all together.
So, and Irish cuisine, I mean, that's one of your specialties, and because you grew up with it, and that's so the inspiration you pulled from your parents' cooking, or did you develop that in a different way?
No, honestly, Irish cooking had nothing to do with me until a period of time. So I actually was trained classical French. I went to the restaurant school at Walnut Hill College in Philadelphia, where I studied classic French cooking. And honestly, I was going to be moving much more into the Italian side of things, and I was going to go to the Italian culinary arts program in Torino, Italy.
Oh, wow.
And then there was like a big to-do that happened with that. So I ended up staying in Philadelphia. I worked at the Four Seasons. I worked at this unbelievable Italian restaurant. And then when I kind of started to move on after graduation and finding different worlds, I had these people who reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing Irish cooking, be the chef at an Irish pub? And I was like, well, let me ask you a question. Do you want corned beef and cabbage on the menu? And they were like, no. And I said, great, then we can start the process. So I actually ended up, I left like the private, well, not the private sector, but I left working in an independent restaurant and went into another one. But I spent 6 months basically doing research on Irish cuisine, trying to find out about it, trying to find out as much information about it. Because there's so much more to Irish food than just stews and, shepherd's pie and cottage pie and that sort of stuff. Because in reality, Ireland is an island. And so there's a tremendous amount of seafood. And one of the better culinary schools throughout Europe is actually in Ballymaloe. It's called the Ballymaloe Cookery, which is Dorina and Rachel Allen. And they have a phenomenal cooking school right there that has produced some really amazing chefs. So long story short, I started to do research. I really got interested in the world of Irish cooking and the food that went around it. I reached out to a bunch of Irish chefs. Got 0 responses. I swear to God, not one chef replied to me. Like, I was looking at some of the greatest chefs in Ireland, trying to find out. I had 3 questions. Where is Irish food now? Where did it come from? And where do you see it moving into? What is the future of it? Wow. Not one chef replied back to me. So I just did a whole bunch of research, and I opened up this Irish pub. The next thing I know, we have a phenomenal reputation. I'm now being voted one of the best Irish chefs in America for 2 years in a row. And fast forward, the next thing I know, all of my busy time in the media world, because at that point I had a show. I was the on-air chef for a local morning show in Philadelphia, and I did that for almost 8 years. And I was always doing Irish food. Wow. And everybody kept asking me to do Irish food. And then I started to do more TV, and the next thing I know, the only appearances I'm getting are around St. Patrick's Day. So I cut out Irish food completely, have not done Irish food in years. I actually just opened an Irish pub in Cincinnati, so I lied. I did just do one a year ago. It's called the Red Leprechaun, and it's an awesome Irish pub right on the banks in Cincinnati. The owner's a brilliant guy, great at marketing. We have a boatload of fun, and we do unbelievable food, all scratch kitchen. So Irish food wasn't really because of my family. Okay. Irish food really came more out of a necessity, a professional necessity for me. And because of that, I've done, I love bar food. I love pub food. I love all of that stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of my Irish food love.
That's incredible. That is definitely different. So and definitely what a journey. So and you're known for huh?
Go ahead. I said it's been a while. I've had a lot of fun.
You're known for your tough love, and you're also your incredible ability to turn kitchens around. What's the biggest challenge you've faced on any of your shows or in your kitchens?
I mean, the shows were really super dramatic. We dealt with a lot of different personalities in that case. And honestly, it all comes down to the owners. Owners allow chefs to do whatever they want, and chefs should be allowed to do what they want, but there should be some parameters that they have. There should be guidelines. And I'll touch on this in a minute, but the biggest part of what I saw during my shows really had to do with the chefs. Egos get in the way. Egos ruin everything. There's a difference between an ego and pride. Right. There's a huge part of that falls in there. Ego blinds you. Pride drives you. I'm so proud of what I've done, as opposed to look at me at what I can do. There's a difference in there with that. And so I found that a lot of the chefs that I dealt with, that just ended up being douchebags. They were just all about the pride of it, or all about the ego of it, not the pride. And they, so many chefs, even to this day, we have so many young chefs that are coming up that are so interested in getting their face on Instagram or getting their face on TV that they're bypassing the business of being a chef. So we're missing that whole thing. And I actually speak now on a bunch of different platforms professionally about, it's called, and I do a whole class called Who Owns the Kitchen? Chef meet the owner of the restaurant.
Right.
Because in reality, the owner of the restaurant has that. And what we've done is we've promoted mediocre quality, and I'm not talking about everyone. Let's understand that. I'm not generalizing here. I'm talking about a very specific sector of our industry. Unfortunately, that sector is about 60 to 75% of our industry, which is mom and pop restaurants that are looking for somebody to come in and do great food. So they hire a chef. The chef runs the operation for them, does a great job. That chef leaves. And now we end up promoting from within somebody who is not really schooled in the business of being a chef. So what I find now are a lot of chefs who just don't understand the business of what's going on. They understand how to put food together and all that, but they don't understand how to write a recipe, or how to cost out food, or how to really do a labor schedule, or do a schedule that has a labor budget in mind. Or there's a lot of chefs who don't understand budgets. I ask chefs all the time, well, how much, what were your sales in your previous restaurant? And they say, oh, the owner never shared that with me. My interview process then changes from interviewing an executive chef to now I'm interviewing a line cook, or I'm interviewing a sous chef who I'm now going to have to train how to run a profitable kitchen.
Right.
So those are some of the biggest struggles that I have found. But really, it all comes down, look, man, it just comes down to chefs can be assholes sometimes, man. It's just that simple. I just did a whole kitchen in a state I can't discuss. And 8 of the cooks, including the chef, basically staged a coup.
Whoa.
They were like, we're not coming back in until we get more money. And the worst part about it is, if they would have waited until Tuesday, all of the cooks were going to be getting raises.
Man.
So it's like, because of an ego, they lost their jobs. And this is in a region of the country that is very, very dependent on tourism and their season. And this is at the end of the season, where the owner would have held all of these people throughout the slow time, continue to give them hours, continue to pay them, because they do about $6.5 million a year in sales. So they would have been able to handle, having that extra staff on. But what we did instead is we fired 8 people at one shot, shut the kitchen down for an entire week, and then we sent in a team to go in and rebuild the kitchen again, rehire new staff, get them up and running. But 8 people, because of their egos, did not have jobs after I left. So it's been a big struggle with that, but there's still a lot of phenomenal cooks and chefs out there that want to learn, that want to do new things. So those are the people that I typically end up working with now.
Fair. No, that is I've seen both ways. I think Tucson's kind of a unique city where we have a lot of chefs that have been humbled, and they're more second chance chefs than anything else. But the owners love them, or they're the owners. We have a lot of chef-owned restaurants here. Yeah,
I mean, Tucson is. I've done a lot of stuff in Arizona, a lot more in the Phoenix and Scottsdale area. In fact, one of my great chef friends, Bo McMillan, is right in Scottsdale. But I've done a lot of stuff out in that area, and I know Tucson fairly well, and I know that there's a lot of great restaurants out there. But again, it comes down to the fact of, when I teach my classes and when I do these classes for owners and chefs, what I'm doing is I'm saying to them, okay, here's what your chef should be delivering to you on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Okay, these are the things that you're looking for, because a lot of owners are like, well, I hired this guy before, he did a great job, I never really had to worry about the kitchen. Now, because of where we are in this time, we have higher food costs than we ever have in our entire life.
Right.
Ever. Labor is, the average cook is starting at $20 an hour, whereas before, and I'm talking about before 5 years ago, I'm not talking 15 or 20.
Right.
I'm talking 5 years ago, the average cook was coming in starting at 12 or 15. So we have that immediate increase that has happened, and because of that, owners are struggling, because we can't raise the prices to what we really have to, because we have sticker shock when it comes to our clients.
Right.
So there's a lot of play in there that really makes it tough. But I know a lot of great spots out in Phoenix, and I know a lot of great cooks that have turned into chefs. And look, I love Phoenix, or I love Arizona in itself. Y'all, you have any restaurants out in Tucson that are looking to get somebody to come in and help them out? Man, that's what I do. That's what my companies do. We love working with owners that want to raise the bar, take care of their chefs really well, and allow them the opportunity to educate and grow.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we have a lot of chef friends. I mean, we've been doing the show for about 14 months now, and we've interviewed over 140 chefs, and they're all they're all incredible. And we do this because the chef community out here deserves to be recognized more than they have before.
Right, absolutely. That's the thing is we all look at, you always look at chefs and they see them on the TV and they see the accolades that they're getting and what they're doing in this rock star mentality.
Right.
But there was this unbelievable article that was written about, honestly, Jude, I'm going to tell you, it was probably 20 years ago. And it was when I had first really started getting involved in TV, and I kind of got this weird local celebrity going on. And one of the servers, we had a board. I've always had a board in a kitchen that's called a want or need list. What do we want and what do we need? We need onions, but I want a new mandolin. Okay?
Right.
And on that list, somebody, and I'm assuming it was a server, but it was an article called Chef, We Miss You. And it was talking about the fact that, yes, I'm still the chef of the restaurant, but because I'm so focused on TV, because I'm so focused on the media angle of things, that I'm missing out on being in the kitchen, and my staff really misses me. I took a little bit of that to heart at that point, but now to this day, I just find how important it is for me to be in my kitchens. And I currently oversee 18 restaurants on a monthly level. I have 10 restaurants that I oversee almost on a daily level. My clients have carte blanche with me. Most of my clients, 90% of them, text me at any given moment, and I'm very quick to reply right back to them because they're paying me to do a job. Right. They're paying me to help them through. I have one of my clients who I love to death. I love them all, but this guy's just a riot. At 1 o'clock in the morning a couple of weeks ago, he texted me, "What's goat cheese? What can we do?" And 7 minutes later, I sent him a recipe, broken down, additions, the whole 9 yards. And he was so funny about it. And it literally was a 1 o'clock in the morning conversation.
Oh, wow.
But that's what a chef is, and that's what a chef does. And, I look at a lot of chefs these days who are just, their egos overtaking their kitchen. I have a partner in North Carolina on a couple of projects, and he struggles with one of his chefs because it's a much more food-driven property. I don't get involved in a place like I didn't get involved in the chef aspect of this. But he goes into this chef all the time because he travels all over the country, and he's like, "Hey, I saw this in Georgia last week. Do you think we can do anything with it?" And the chef goes, "Yeah, sure, we can do something with that." And then we never hear from him again. And it's like if you're an owner and you have an idea or a vision for what you want to see coming out of the kitchen that you own, your chef should be responsive to that.
Right.
Your chef should be able to come back and be like, "Hey, man, you showed me a burger last week. Here's my version of that. You showed me a salmon dish last week. Here's my version, my take on that dish." That's what we do because we all should be dealing with inspiration. None of us are recreating the culinary wheel. Very few of us are recreating the culinary wheel. Let's put it that way. And the most sincere form of flattery is imitation, man.
Absolutely.
We all work off of other people's dish, and we grow them, we build them, and we turn them into our own in our own ways. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. But I am a chef. I love my chef friends, but when in a consulting situation, typically I end up going in. I have to be client first, chef second.
That's understandable, definitely. And, getting into a little bit more of the food side of things, and speaking of the food wheel, if you will, what are some of the current food trends that you think will have a lasting impact on the restaurant industry right now?
I mean, dude, comfort food across the board is always going to be something huge. And what we're doing is, we're recreating variations of the classic comfort foods. It's just what we do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at how hot the Nashville hot chicken sandwich has been year after year after year. Nashville hot was a poor man's food. Nashville hot was a dirty little restaurant in Nashville, Tennessee.
Right.
That just didn't, and then all of a sudden somebody went in, somebody put it on TV, somebody put it on Instagram. Now every restaurant that's out there has a version of a Nashville hot. We are constantly recreating the same items. And one of the things that I do with my clients is I really try to, I ask my clients right off the bat, what do you want to see on your menu? What is something that you want to eat all the time? And they put a list together. And from that list, I try to build off of that. We might do a Nashville hot chicken sandwich, but what I'm going to do, like right now, I do a really cool one that's totally gluten-free. All right, with the exception of the bun. Let's establish that. So it's rice flour, masa flour, and cornmeal. Or rice flour, masa flour, and cornstarch. Okay, that's my batter that I use for that Nashville hot.
Yeah.
And it is. It's super tasty. And you know what else? It's got an unbelievable crunch to it.
Yep.
Better than a traditional flour would, because of the fact that we haven't ruined cornstarch and rice flour yet. United States, we've completely ruined flour across the board. It's just, I mean, you look at everybody who's got gluten allergies or sensitivities or whatever it is. We've ruined a lot of our food because of growth, chemical, all the other bullshit that gets involved. But when I deal with a client like that, one of the things that I try to do is I'll come in with a different variation. I want to play around. I might use a different chili. I might use a different spice. I really try to play around. Like hot honey is an unbelievable thing, but in reality, hot honey is a variation of a chili crisp, which is one of the originals. So, like, why not utilize some great chilies, add them in, toast them in the pan, release those oils, get all that out, steep them within the honey. There's a lot of great plays on classic dishes. So for me, the things that are always going to be around no matter what are always going to be the classics within that world of comfort food.
Agreed. No, we just have about a minute and a half left in the segment here, but we wanted to get you to or some time to plug your stuff. So tell us about your podcast, Duffy Live, Duffified.
Yeah, there you go. Well played. Well, it gives everybody a little tongue twister when they do that. So actually the podcast is on hold right now. I took a break from it just because I travel about 140,000 miles a year right now. So it's really tough to continue the recording. And as with recording, you've got to be consistent with it.
Yes.
It is the number one thing you've got to be consistent about is that. So for me, it was really hard to continue that. It still lives. It still is out there. Some great episodes. I will ultimately bring it back. But for right now, it's called Duffified Live. And you can find it on Spotify and Apple Apple Music and all that stuff. It's all out there. But for me, I backed off of that. So right now, a lot of what I'm doing is, you can follow all the stuff that I do on Instagram, which is Chef Brian Duffy, ChefBriduff. And then a lot of my consulting is through my group called Duffified Experience Group, because I believe that dining, being in a kitchen, all of that are experiences. And we need to create experiences because the art of the preparation creates the experience.
Absolutely.
That's what we're missing, is that preparation of building, getting ready. And then the other stuff, I work with a group called Maverick Theory, which is 35 of the greatest consultants in the country, we feel. And we are very, very aggressive in our methodology for consulting. It's a much higher end consulting firm, whereas my Duffified Experience Group is really geared towards smaller mom and pop restaurants that I don't want people to get taken advantage of by a lot of people that call themselves consultants. So that's those are my two big things that I'm doing right now. I got a lot of cool projects. I'm a part owner of a spice company in Germany and a cookie company out of Alaska. And then the other thing, if you want to follow, is called Yum Crunch. Tag all of your food pictures, send them through to Yum Crunch. We are a viral ASMR video.
Okay.
We do a tremendous amount of marketing on there. It's a lot of fun, so check that out as well.
And that's Yum Crunch?
Yum Crunch, YUMCRUNCH.
Perfect. And we'll definitely get that done. And everybody listening needs to get that done as well. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Tucson Tasty Show, Chef Duffy. We're going to have to get you out to Tucson. We are the first UNESCO City of Gastronomy in North America. So we definitely have to show you what we've got.
I love it, dude. I can't wait to get out there.
Thank you so much. And stay tasty, Tucson.